we kick off this evening with a look at the cinema.
I'm not a complicated man. I like cinema.
It's beautiful, beautiful cinema.
Cinema history come to life.
I found my solace in the small cinema I went to every Thursday night.
I'm a professor of cinema.
I go to the cinema for the stories.
There was no competition between the cinema and seminar.
I mean, it's not within the realm of conventional cinema.
And now,
here's Space and Johnson
with a cinema review.
It is Monday, February 26th, 2024, 7 EST, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Cinemasters Reviews. Exciting show this week. We're almost towards the end of February, also known as Dumpuary, as some movie fans might call it. A lot of movies that studios just want to get out, just kind of get dumped in here. But we got some movies I'm excited to talk about today. We have Ethan Coen's new movie, Drive Away Dolls. This is his first solo effort, as well as the new horror movie, Stopmotion. I say we jump right into our first review, and joining me to review Drive Away Dolls, the only person I know that loves the Coen brothers just as much as me, Caleb Coho. Coho, how are you doing today?
I'm so excited to be here and talk about this movie. I saw it last night, so I have a lot of fresh thoughts still. I don't know. This is a movie that I was super excited to see since the Coen split. I was really excited to see what each one chooses to do on their own. And now that we each have one solo effort from each, I'm so excited to talk about it. They're so different.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to talk about this movie. I say we jump right in. Drive Away Dolls is directed by Ethan Coen, written by Ethan Coen and his wife, Trisha Cook. This is a movie that follows two lesbians played by Margaret Qualley, and I wrote down her name, Geraldine Viswanathan. Margaret Qualley plays the definitely more extroverted, very spunky character. Geraldine plays the much more quiet, reserved character. They are kind of in this point in their life where they don't really know what to do, and one of them decides, hey, let's go visit our grandmother in Florida. So they decide to take a drive-away service where you agree to ship a car, essentially drive a car that has a shipment down to a place, and then you essentially are just in that place. You have this free ride. But wouldn't you know it, they accidentally take a car that, in classic Coen Brothers fashion, has a product that some criminals want, and some criminals start chasing them. Lots of hijinks ensue. Coho, I have always heard before that when it comes to the collaboration of Ethan and Joel was always the one that was more film school oriented. He was the one that was really interested in these filmmaking techniques. He was really into the art stuff. And Ethan Coen was there because he just wanted to have fun and add a lot of humor to it. And I can definitely feel that watching this movie. But also, before we get into that, what is your history with the Coen brothers real quick? And then you can also talk about
the Coen brothers are my favorite directors of all time. I love their filmography. Ever since I saw No Country for Old Men, I was like, these are guys that I'm going to follow everything they do. And I have watched every single movie they've have made up to this point, dissected them, deep cut studied them. I love them. I think they are some of the most interesting, proficient, and smart filmmakers of all time. And they are Minnesota natives, which is always cool to me. So they make movies that just speak to me and what I like in storytelling, and do really fun, interesting things. But definitely, like you said, Joel went to film school. Ethan went to business school, and you can really see it when they make movies. But I think now, having seen Macbeth and Drive Away Dolls as being their solo efforts, you know not only what their sensibilities are individually, but also how much their spouses influence their work as well. Because having Joel being married to Frances McDormand shows that Tragedy of Macbeth being the product of them is oh yeah, that makes sense coming from this really stoic, interesting, artsy, successful couple. And then Trisha Cook, who is an editor first and foremost, you can tell with Drive Away Dolls, it's just this was made by someone with crazy coked out fun vision. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost kind of funny when you really think about this plot, and you kind of just think, how bare bones and how honestly kind of minimal it is, where you have these two characters, they just want to go to one place and they end up in this whole like criminal ordeal almost by accident. Like this almost seems like a Coen Brothers Mad Lib sort of thing. And I think that just kind of shows how Ethan Coen is not necessarily there for like the filmmaking stuff. He just kind of wants to have fun and show this like these like outlandish ideals. And yeah, like you said, Trisha Cook being an editor first and foremost, this is a movie that is like some movies I like to say are barely even 90 minutes. This is barely even 80 minutes. Like I want to say with credit, like without credits, this movie is less than 80 minutes, and I think you can kind of feel like
it's like an hour 18. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like the premise was kind of stretched a little out into feature length, and I think it's just because they were really just this movie really just kind of served as like a template to get as many like jokes in as they could. Did you feel like the premise felt a little bit bare bones and stripped down for you?
This felt like an extended short film. I think this would have been a Oscar-winning short film if you cut about 40 minutes out of this movie, or maybe just a half hour. I think there's a half hour's worth of stuff that you can remove to make this a short, but I also think there's definitely 45 minutes worth of material that they just didn't include and didn't explore that would have made this a better feature. And that's my biggest issue, is that it exists in a weird space where it's too long to be a short, so it's not a great feature, but it's also too long to be a great short. It's kind of like they edited it almost too much to a point where it doesn't serve the story as much as I think it could. I also think that this is a story that Ethan probably had in a drawer for like 3 decades, and you can also really tell based on the setting and like the character choices that he has with the characters. It's like, I feel like you could tell it's written for like Holly Hunter and Frances McDormand circa 1992. And like, you can really feel that with the movie.
Just to be clear, would you have had Hunter play the quality role and McDormand play the
right? I think that would have been the casting pairing on that one, which is out of character for both.
No, yeah. I could definitely see both of them like reaching for that in the 90s. And yeah, like you said, this is a movie that takes place in 1999. It deals with the upcoming 2000 election. There are Y2K jokes. It definitely does feel like Ethan Coen and Trisha Cook have had this idea for a while, but at the same time, the Coens are also known for setting their movie in different periods, so you never know, maybe it was 100% a choice. But yeah, like you said, I definitely do feel like I kind of do wish this movie was like maybe like 20 minutes longer, like we would have had some more moments with the characters, because it really does feel like Ethan Coen and Trisha Cook just had these ideas and these moments they wanted to get to, but yeah, like you said, it just felt like an extended short film where they might have just wanted to make they wanted to make a feature-length film, and they realized when they wrote the script, oh dang, we only really have enough for like a 45-minute film. We kind of got to stretch some certain things out, and maybe those stretched out parts might not have been as strong as the whole might not have been as strong as the sum of its parts.
True, and I think my big issue with that is that you can tell which half of the couple wants to focus on what more. For Patricia, it's like the lesbian relationship is the focus, and as it should be. But when Ethan's involved, you can tell like the criminal hijinks and the Coen brother Mad Lib stuff has to be involved, and they don't do much with it. They don't. I don't have much interaction or involvement with the criminals as much as I'd like, and they got some heavy hitters to be in those parts. Like, you got Coleman Domingo in such a great part, and he's not in it very much. And that's my other thing. They have so many great, talented people in this cast, and they don't serve those talents much at all. And that makes me wonder if Ethan is the ideas guy in the Coens that generates these great plots, and Joel's the one who makes them into the films and like gives it focus. And Ethan throws him 20 ideas, and Ethan uses 11 of them. Like, I wonder if that's how it works, which makes me understand, I think, in also just seeing them individually, why they chose Joel to be the director credit and Ethan to be the producer credit. Because I think Joel does more of the technical work as a director on the sets. And while Ethan certainly helps direct, I think Ethan does a great job of selling the movies to people, and that's why he gets the producer credit.
100%. Yeah, like you said, when Joel is alone, he makes The Tragic Macbeth with his wife, Frances McDormand. And that is one of the most like artistic and like technically like proficient movies that I think I've seen in the past years. Like, there is not a hint of humor in that mark. Like, and I do think them as a pair bring out the best in each other. Like, I think we see you in The Tragic Macbeth when Joel is alone, there is like hardly any jokes there, and I think Ethan brings that out of him, and I do think that's fun. But yeah, I think Ethan without Joel, you definitely see like there's maybe just a little bit lack of focus, and his mind is just going in like 1,000 different miles. Yeah, like you said, Coleman Domingo is in this for maybe like 5 minutes. Pedro Pascal in it for even less than that.
I think Pedro's screen time might be a minute, might be a full minute.
Might be a minute, yeah. There's one other major cameo in here. Like I can't remember if he was in the trailers or not. So
he's not. So I did not know going in that this person was in the movie, but also great cameo.
Yes, phenomenal cameo. If there's one person that was used really, really well of their bit part, I think it is him, and I'm not going to spoil who that is.
Oh, phenomenal! He left me wanting not because he was like not good, because he was so good. I wanted more.
Yeah, no, 100%. One of the elements where I think Ethan wanted to focus on this movie more, and just Trisha Cook just didn't have like that much of an interest, which is an element of the movie I loved and was my favorite moment. We keep on cutting back to these two criminals played by Joey Slotnick and C.J. Wilson. Their name was Arliss and Flint. They work for Coleman Domingo's character, and they are definitely like the bumbling idiot criminals. I think the best parallel I can think of would be John Goodman and William Forsythe in Raising Arizona, where and like every single scene they have, like one of them is like a little bit smarter than the other is just such a doof and just keeps on getting beat up and just humiliated every single scene. Every scene they had I thought was hilarious, and part of me kind of wished am I wrong for wishing that the movie was about them and tell me your thoughts.
I think a parallel track. They're the people that I think definitely needed to be in the movie for a lot more, because they are essentially the antagonists, or at least the foot soldier antagonists of the movie. And it's interesting you say Goodman and Forsythe. I thought Buscemi and Stormare. I thought they were absolutely that level from Fargo, where they were like to a T. Like it was almost like a copy paste of that dynamic from Fargo, just put into a straightforward comedy. And I thought they were both really good and really fun, and I think they needed to be in the movie more. I think the conversations they have in the car are some of the best scenes in the movie. I think they should have been in the movie a lot more to make me care more about the crime element of the story. Because I think they nail the romance. I think the romance
Coho, you are cutting just a little. Yeah, we can't really hear you right now. Coho is coming in. I'm gonna give Coho some time to leave and come back in. But yeah, I'm just gonna say, like, in terms of the romance, I thought that was great between Quali and Geraldine. I think their characters, regardless of what you think about their individual performances, I think that is just a friendship that I think always just really, really works. I love when we see like a really a really strong and like overt extroverted character that is just best friends with like this like really like reserved and introverted character. And there are points where you think that maybe the introverted character is like really annoyed by their extroverted friend, and like the character of Jamie is like not like the introduction of Jamie, we see her literally like cheating on her partner, and just the friendship that just keeps on like rolling from there that eventually evolves into a romance, I do think was really well. Koho, you were saying before you cut off, you think the romance was handled wonderfully.
Oh yeah, I think the romance is the heart of the movie. I think they absolutely crushed that. And I think that they nailed that to the full extent that it needs to in order to make that movie work. And I think that both characters get super fleshed out and are super well done. What I think the movie needed more of is the crime element to balance it out. And that's mostly my big gripe, is that I think that the reason the movie is too short is because they don't focus on the Coen half of that movie nearly as much as they should. And that's sort of my big knock on the movie, though I do think the central romance is adorable. I love it. And I think it's really tender and really sweet.
100%. Yeah, with this being a movie that's barely 80 minutes, like if you were to add more stuff, you totally could have added more stuff with Arliss and Flint. Even the end of that story, it kind of ends just like kind of abruptly. Mm-hmm. And I do understand because we are focusing on Jamie and Mariah. That is the main focus that we should be focusing on. That is the heart of the movie. But with how entertaining that part could have been, because that is where you see like Ethan Coen at his best, in my opinion. Yeah. I just kind of wish we had more of that. But let's head into Margaret Qualley and Geraldine, the Swanathon. Try not to mispronounce that name. When we are first introduced to Jamie's character, my first thought was, crap, is Margaret Qualley's accent going to get on my nerves? Because this is such like a dramatic choice for her. Like she's giving like a deep Southern accent. She's a character that you constantly see her having sex throughout the movie. You constantly see her like she is the one that kind of gets her and Mariah into these troublesome situations. But for me, she really won me over throughout the movie. I think Margaret Qualley is an actress that continues to impress me, and this is once again a performance that really did impress me. I think it takes a little while to warm up, and I can totally see some people being off put by this performance, but I really liked it. What did you think specifically of Margaret Qualley in this movie?
I thought Qualley was great. I think she was. I've liked her since the Death Note remake. I think she's really good in the Death Note remake. But I think everything since then I've seen her, and she's great. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, she always brings it, and I was so happy to see her have a like leading starring role, especially in a Coen Brothers movie. And at first I was a little like, she's really just doing a Holly Hunter impression from Raising Arizona for like the movie. But the more the movie went on and the more we dug into the character, I think Margaret really made it her own. And really like, even though it's a caricature that is very much someone I've seen in other Coen Brother movies, I think she really adopted that role and made it her own in a really interesting and unique way. Where I think Geraldine Viswanathan, it took a while for me to like really get won over by that character. I think the performance was pitch perfect, but that character was one where I was like, I don't really know what we're doing. What's the growth arc? What's happening? And by the time we hit the middle of the movie, I was like, okay, I get it, and I'm in.
Yeah, no, I definitely parallel your thoughts on Geraldine's character. I think the character of Mariah sort of starts out as like your very typical like introverted character. Like, I'm very meek. I don't like to talk too much. Like, I'm very much like riding on the coattails of my best friend, and I'm clearly annoyed at certain things. And I think it took a little while for that character to really find her footing, even though I think Geraldine's doing a good job in what she's supposed to be doing. But I think it just took a little while for that character to like really find her footing. While it seemed like Qualley like immediately knew the type of character she wanted to play. The character of Jamie has a lot of meat to her. Like the scene where they're about to go into a lesbian bar and Jamie's like, "Okay, this is what you got to do. You just got to really like swoon your way into it." I just thought was really, really funny. Beanie Feldstein I also think is great. Like she is like. She's someone that always continues to impress me, and she just her being like the police officer and being like the character that just like zero fucks given, like just and like when one of the criminals first introduced, like just the way how she completely just beats the shit out of this guy, I thought was really fun. What did you think about Beanie Feldstein in this movie?
I think her character is seriously underserved. I think you could have done a lot more with her. I think that Beanie was very over the top, and she had a couple of moments that I thought were really good at that, and other moments where I thought it was too much. Okay. So I think that she's not my favorite element. She's certainly not bad, but I definitely didn't love her the way I love her in things like Booksmart. Though it was fun to see her let loose in a couple scenes, like the one where she's beating the shit out of the guy. I think that she's really great in that scene. Or the breakup scene, I think she's great in that scene. But other times it's kind of, I don't know, she's very hit or miss in this movie for me. And I also think that comes from the character not getting enough to do. Honestly, you could have fleshed her out more and given her some agency and like put her in a position to figure out this mystery on her own and tie it back into a third act. So,
yeah, honestly, with the exception of Jamie and Mariah, none of the characters, except for maybe like one other character that we don't want to spoil, like none of them really have like a true like ultimate like conclusion and like satisfactory like this is where they go, which I guess is kind of how the Coen brothers roll. But usually it just seems a little bit more seamless in those movies. Where this one it seems like something is very clearly missing, with the exception of Jamie and Mariah. One of the things I do want to talk about with this movie is I think probably one of the most telling things about this movie is if there is one Coen brothers movie that probably had Ethan's voice on it the most, The one I kept feeling with this one is Burn After Reading. And I think it is just because the shock humor and like the over-the-top nature is in full effect with this movie. And while a lot of it did make me laugh, and like there were certain moments where like when you realize what is actually in the car, and like for the first time I was like, okay, now I'm in. I think there were also some moments where I was like, okay, this is getting a little too much for me. What was your opinion on like the full like shock and like gross out humor of this movie?
So I think with Drive Away Dolls, it feels very in your face fuck you, which is weird for the Coen brothers because not like they usually disguise their fuck yous really well. Even things like Burn After Reading, which are so overtly like slapstick and crazy and very, like you said, Ethan coded, are done very well and like have, even in a movie like that where you think there's no plot or you think there is a plot and find out there's really no plot, is there's an enjoyment and entertainment factor to that this lacks. I think this lacks a lot of the sort of, I guess, the hard hits and shock value feel more for the sake of shock value and in your face than servicing a story the way Burn After Reading does, or the way like even things like Inside Llewyn Davis has moments of shock, or like Hail Caesar has a couple of shock value moments. I think that those are done in service of a story, and I don't think Drive Away Dolls necessarily has much service in the shock or the gross out. So I don't know. I didn't dislike it. I think they're all like bold choices that I applaud. It's just I don't know if they serve the story as well.
Yeah, it weirdly kind of reminded me, like, I think another one I could kind of parallel is like How a Serious Man uses a lot of like shocking elements, but I think where that one is really like going for the element of like, look how like at the end of the day dark and depressing this movie is. Yeah. This one just doesn't have that nature because it's still trying to be like a full-on comedy. And I think that's where I was like, I think there was just a level where I was like, I enjoy Ethan Coen's humor so much that like I'm there for like a point, but I think at a point I was like, okay, we're getting a little too much. Like, where is this going? So yeah, that is kind of where I felt
it's definitely a moment where you watch this on its own without Joel, and you go, you're left. It's like watching, Laurel without Hardy or Stan without Ollie, and it's like it's weird. It doesn't work as cohesively as when you bring out some of the same bits but dressed up different. And it's the same thing with Macbeth too, where Macbeth is a great movie that I think is super well made, but it's really not a Coen Brothers movie. And I think this movie, both of them really, on their own, show that they are competent directors that can make movies to varying degrees of success. But I think they both, in these ventures, should realize, and as an audience, we should realize that this is a 1-2 punch that needs each other. That Joel needs Ethan just as much as Ethan needs Joel, in the sense that I think when you watch Macbeth, I think Joel's a very nihilistic human being, and you get that in every dark comedy they do. All the dark is Joel, and all the comedy is Ethan. And I think that you need the light that Ethan brings to the movies. Things like Big Lebowski, Oh Brother. I think those are very Ethan forward, and things like No Country and A Serious Man and Millers are very Joel centric. Yeah, and I think that
like, A Serious Man is totally Joel Coen. Like that was Joel Coen that Ethan Coen was like, but what if we made it fun? And I think that's why I like the movie so much.
And I think some of their best movies are the ones where it's like Fargo is both. That is both people have a full control hand on the wheel. Blood Simple both have a full control on the wheel.
Yeah, Barton Fink I think is like 100% like they're both controlling that.
Right. Things like Hail Caesar and Buster Scruggs and True Grit are things where it's like these guys are in equal control of the story they're telling. I think those are some of their best. And I think both of them should realize at this point that they need each other, and I'm excited to see what they're about to do together again. So
no, absolutely. I am like hearing that they want to make like a horror movie. I'm like, give it to me. Like I'm
gonna be wild. Yeah. A nihilistic dark comedy horror movie is gonna be amazing.
Injected into my bloodstream. Before we head into final ratings, is there anything else you want to say about Drive Away Dolls?
I think just my big takeaway was that Trisha Cook is a great editor when she has someone to tell her no. because I think The Big Lebowski is one of the best edited movies of all time. I think she's amazing at that. I think when Ethan, and Joel get in an editing room and work together on something, they can make the most immaculately paced and cut thing together. I think her being the sole editor and her husband being the director and not wanting to cause fights can definitely be seen with some of the crazy edits they do. I think Trisha Cook is such a talented individual. I think Ethan Coen is such a talented individual. I think it was made by a lot of talented people.
Yeah,
I just wish it was better. I think that there's a lot to like. I think there's a lot to dislike. I think there's a lot left that leaves me wanting. But Drive Away Dolls, I think, is not an awful movie. It's just a movie.
I think that is the number one thing I will say in this movie's favor is there are so many movies right now where it feels like it wasn't told by someone with like that much of a vision. This movie has a vision, and I think that is what carries this movie through thick and thin. Is like it feels like someone had an idea of what they wanted to do, and at the end of the day, you are seeing that on the screen. Well, here at Cinemaster's Reviews, we do review movies on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, 0 being absolutely awful, 10 being absolutely amazing. You can go half videotapes. Coho, on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, what would you give Drive Away Dolls?
I'd give it 5. I'd go 5. I think that it's definitely a mixed bag. I think there's enough there that I would be left that I would not hate my time watching this again. It's one that I don't necessarily know if I want to go back to very often. It's on the lower end of my Coen Brothers rankings. I definitely think it's an incomplete film with an incomplete story, but the stuff that's there is entertaining. It's weird. It's funny. So I applaud the swing. I think Ethan on his own is not nearly as good of a filmmaker as Joel. And I'm excited to see the two work together again very soon because I think the Coen Brothers are the most talented duo in the history of film. So,
yeah, I echo that sentiment that I do think Joel and Ethan Coen are the most talented duo in film. But on his own, I think I'm going to go a little bit higher than you on Drive Away Dolls. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I do think at the end of the day, while this is a very flawed film, I think the things I liked enough to push it to that angle. Yeah, like you said, this is towards the bottom half of my Coen Brothers ranking, but with the just level as to how much I love their filmography, I think that just you have movies that are in like the 7 out of 10 range that do tend to be in the bottom half.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think the main issue is that this movie is just feels a little bit half-baked, but when you have Quali and the Swanathon at the center, when you have some of the really, really funny, humorous bits, I did find myself very entertained. If you are a Coen Brothers fan, I would recommend you go see this in theaters. You should go see this in theaters. If not, probably not like a necessity, but if you do see it at home, you're going to enjoy your time.
This is going to be Big Lebowski cult status in 10, 15 years. I can see it already.
No, I can totally see Zoomers picking this up and being like, this is our like generation's Big Lebowski, even though I do think the Big Lebowski is a far, far better film.
Superior film.
Yeah, far superior. Coho, before you head out, 2 questions. 1, top 3 Coen Brothers movies.
It's just recently changed. 1 Fargo, 2 Hail Caesar, 3 No Country for Old Men. That is my top 3 on the Coen Brothers.
Hail Caesar at 2. I like that pick.
Love Hail Caesar.
Yeah. We have the same one. I'm going to go Fargo, No Country for Old Men at 2, and then A Serious Man at 3. Serious Man is like my personal one. Like I think that movie's a masterpiece. But at the same time, I also love Miller's Crossing, love Big Lebowski. I just love the Coen Brothers so much. And the second question I have to ask Coho before you head out: is there anything you want to plug or promote?
Multiplex Entertainment. We are doing cool shit on Movie Melee. Check out the website. It's dope. Nick Twig is a genius. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow the Multiplex Multi-Blog. Watch Multiplex. It has a ton of trivia stuff. I compete over there. Coho competes over there. Lots of great people compete over there. Thank you so much for stopping by, Coho. It's always so much fun to talk about this with you.
For sure. See ya.
Great night. Thank you once again, Coho, for reviewing Drive Away Dolls with me. But we are going to head straight into our second review of the night, that being Stopmotion. This is the newest horror film from Shudder. Got a theatrical release. Directed by Robert Morgan. This is a creepy film. This is about a stop-motion filmmaker by the name of Ella, played by Aisling Franciosi. She is helping an older woman complete this stop-motion film. She is starting to get sick, and she does not believe she is going to be able to finish this. So she asks Ella to finish this film. While filming it, she meets a little girl played by Kyle-Lynn Springall, who essentially tells her, hey, while you're doing this film, the story is good on its own, but why don't you add a serial killer doll by the name of the Ashman and just add certain scenes where this doll is there, starts killing some characters, and wouldn't you know it, Ella starts hallucinating and seeing this doll in her life in different circumstances, and she starts questioning her own sanity as to whether or not that doll might actually be alive. This is an interesting film to talk about. The first thing I want to say is there are certain genres that can get away with certain things if they accomplish something. I think the comedy genre is the one you'll always hear people say, a comedy can get away with a lot of things, good or bad, if it accomplishes the one simple task of making you laugh. A horror movie is kind of the same thing, where it can accomplish a lot of things, good or bad, if it just manages to scare you. And even if a bad horror movie is very clearly not that good, if it genuinely ends up chilling you or making you feel uncomfortable or scaring you, it can oftentimes walk away with a recommendation or walk away with you saying, that was pretty good. And regardless of what I think about stop motion, this is a genuinely scary and upsetting film. And I think a lot of that comes down to how good and how creepy the stop motion elements are. You don't just see these characters making the stop motion film. When you are watching the stop motion scenes, you are seeing them in full stop motion. You get that unsettling movement. You get that wooden doll feel. And whenever we see these scenes of even these characters just walking around, you feel creeped out. You feel on edge. And I think when these scenes, when you are in the scenes of in Ella's head, watching her film these shots, I think if you're a horror fan, you're gonna really, really enjoy it, because that is where the movie was at its most interesting. The actual story, in the real world, I can kind of take or leave. Ella has a relationship with her boyfriend that is kind of not on the best terms. We see her her mental state is kind of starting to deteriorate because she's starting to do more drugs. I think both of the lead performances from Aisling Franciosa, who plays Ella, and Kyle-Lynn Springall, who plays the little girl, are both really, really good. Aisling Franciosa brings a lot to this character in scenes where there's not a lot of dialogue. She plays a lot of it on her face, and you see how she's just kind of going insane. And a lot of these horror movies, if you don't get a good child actor, it can come off super cheesy. Kyle-Lynn Springall, as far as I'm concerned, is a great child actress. I haven't seen her in many other things aside from this, but she plays this character. Even from the moment she shows up, this kid is creepy and immediately makes you feel on edge. And but nothing she's necessarily doing at first is the worst thing in the world, but you definitely are in an immediate sense of, I don't really trust this character. And I think that's from her performance, and how she keeps on saying hey, why don't you add the Ashman in this scene, or why don't you add another scene where this character comes in at night. And I just thought that was really, really well done. There are some other even in the real world, even though I didn't think the story was super captivating, there are some very, very disturbing moments, specifically towards the end. Without spoiling anything, there's a scene where a character's leg has to get sewn up, and it was the closest moment I've seen in a horror movie in a long time, where my stomach was uneasy watching this movie, and I hadn't even eaten. When I saw this movie last night, and I was gonna eat dinner afterwards, and I'm very happy I did, because I watched this movie on an empty stomach, and watching this scene, I was oh man, I just felt super uneasy, super out of breath, as you should watching this movie, because I think it is very, very well done in the scenes where it is trying to scare you. It's funny, I saw in the theater I saw this, there was a family right in front of me. In my opinion, their kid was there, and they were way too young to be seeing this movie. If you have a family and you want to take them, I can't stop you. But in my opinion, I think they were far, far too young. And just by the end of this, not an hour into this 90-minute movie, I just see them all get up and just leave. And I'm yeah, probably should have looked up what the movie was about before you decided to make your family movie night stop motion. But I digress. I can definitely tell this was a movie that was made with the idea of hey, what if we made a movie about a character making a stop motion movie, and we constantly see scenes of the stop motion film being shot and the characters in the stop motion film. And that was the first idea, and the idea of hey, let's the idea of, okay, what's the story outside of the real world? That definitely came second. I think that kind of plays a little bit into the detriment of the movie, where just all the scenes where you're watching the stop motion stuff, that is super effective. That is super well done. And most of the scenes outside the real world, you're like, okay, this isn't bad, but I can kind of take or leave. The ending is a bit disappointing. I don't want to spoil anything, but I think the way how it ended kind of just feels like a non-ending, where just there was a lot of things that really hadn't been caught up, and I think the movie just wanted like its big moment. And I can definitely feel like the filmmakers probably thought this was like a big gotcha moment at the end, but I don't think the characters had been like the most developed to the point where I was like that invested in how it decided to end. If I were to rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, I think I'm going to go 6.5. I do think it is a very well done movie. If you are a horror fan, I would definitely recommend going to see this movie. If not, I don't think this movie is going to have a ton for you to like, unless you are just like a diehard stop motion animation fan. Like I know some people are. I think it's a great art form. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed my time, but not one that I'm going to be like remembering for like a long while after, nor one that I think I'm going to be returning to too many times after this. But yeah, that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you all for watching. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the video store. It helps get our it helps grow our channel, gets the word out on everything. Next week, probably my most anticipated film of the year, Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2. I'm so excited for this movie. I've had a guest locked in for this one for a while. I'm gonna message him right after the show to see if he's still down to review it. We're going to be reviewing another movie, but like that is like the big headliner. I'm so excited to be seeing that movie. If all goes well, I hope to go have a nice steak dinner before I go see that movie. And then I'll go see Dune Part 2 on a nice, good, non-hungry stomach while eating my large popcorn. I don't know why I'm telling you all this. I'm very excited for next week. But yeah, thank you all for watching. It's been a great show. And remember, as always, watch more movies.
And the award for most vapid film review of the century goes to...
Okay, movie review. Okay, I thought it was beauty.
And he's now in cinema hell, where one day we'll all be reunited.
This is me at the Regal Cinema crying as I did through much of the film.